Okay, sorry I was interrupted for number 12, so if you were listening to the last video, to continue on with number 12, real quick, what I did was I explained that we're using right triangle trig, so we have to use the SOHCAHTOA, which is the sine, cosine, and tangent ratios. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, we don't have the hypotenuse, and since we're looking for answers for these ratios here, we're going to need to have our hypotenuse. So what I did over here was the Pythagorean theorem, 8 squared plus 13 squared equals c squared, so that we could get the hypotenuse, which is, in this case, 15.3. And we probably don't even want to really round at that point, so we can leave this as square root of 233 if we want, and then when we put it into our equation, we can take the square root at that point. So here, for the sine of A, we want the opposite over the hypotenuse. So the opposite is 13, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 233. So we can just put that in our calculator because we want to know the value for the sine of A. So the sine of A is just, let me get this so you can see it, 13 divided by the square root of 233, and rounded to the nearest tenth is 0.9. Oh, hundredth, sorry, so 0.85. So 0.85 is the value for the sine of A. Now cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse, so the adjacent side of angle A is 8, and the hypotenuse again is the radical 233. So since we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, we can use the calculator for this one. So again, we will just do 8 divided by the square root of 233, and we will get 0.52 rounded to the nearest hundredth, 0.52. And the tangent of B is opposite over adjacent, so B is our reference angle. So now we're going to go opposite side. Opposite of B is 8. So 8 over adjacent, which is adjacent of B, is 13. So 8/13, we can round that, so we can just do 8 divided by 13, which is 0.62. And those are the ratios for sine of A, cosine of A, and tangent of B for this right triangle. Okay, in number 13, we are going to use the law of cosines or the law of sines for this oblique triangle. So we are looking for the measure of angle A. So the law of cosines, and we have all three sides, so we're going to use the law of cosines. So law of cosines says that a squared, little a squared, is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of angle A. So little a is across from big A, so we substitute, this is little a. 16 squared is equal to b squared, which is across from big B, which is 15, plus c squared, which is 18 squared, minus 2 times b, which is 15, times c, which is 18, times the cosine of angle A. So we need to isolate cosine of angle A. So let's solve this equation here. 16 squared is 256. So we have 256 equals 225 plus 18 squared, which is 324. And then we need to multiply 2 times 15 times 18, which is 540. So minus 540 cosine of A. So order of operations say we have to put these two together first. So 256 is equal to 225 plus 324, which is 549, minus 540 times the cosine of A. So I want to subtract over 549. So we will end up getting 256 minus 549, negative 293, equals negative 540 times the cosine of A. I need cosine of A by itself, so I'm going to divide, because this is multiplication, by negative 540. So cosine of A is going to equal 293 divided by 549, which is 0.534. Now that's a rounded number, so I'm not going to take that out of my calculator. But to undo a cosine, I'm going to do the inverse cosine. So A is going to equal the inverse cosine of our answer. And that will be inverse cosine of our answer, 57.7 degrees. Okay. Now, measure of angle B. We're again going to use the law of cosines. So this time we'll use B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2 AC times the cosine of B, angle B. So this is 15 squared equals 16 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times A, which is 16 times C, which is 18 times the cosine of angle B. So we'll do the same thing again. 15 squared is 225 equals 16 squared, which is 256, plus 18 squared, which is 324, minus 2 times 16 times 18. 2 times 16 times 18 is 576 times the cosine of B. Okay, so we need to combine our like terms here, just these two. This is multiplication, so we're not going to combine the 576. So this is 225 is equal to 256 plus 324, 580 minus 576 times the cosine of B. You cannot add these. Order of operations says you have to divide that out last. So we're going to subtract over the 580 to the other side. So 225 minus 580 is negative 355 equals negative 576 times the cosine of B. We want to undo multiplication by division. So the cosine of angle B will be negative 355 divided by 576, which is 0.616. And again, I'm not going to take that whole number out of my calculator because it will be rounded too much. So we'll just take the inverse cosine of our answer. So inverse cosine of 0.616 will be 51.95 degrees. And we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so this will round up to 52.0 degrees. So this is about 52.0 degrees. And to get angle C, all three of these angles have to add up to 180 degrees, so we can just do angle C plus 57.7 plus 52 has to equal 180 degrees. Solve that equation. 57.7 plus 52 is 109.7. So subtract 109.7 from 180. And that's 70.3 degrees. So C is approximately 70.3 degrees.